Well, radio was founded initially as a national service to serve national interests and national programs. Now, community radio is local. It serves a specified locality. It speaks to local issues. It addresses local matters on the ground, church issues, schools, health services, and it speaks to all those issues that affect a community. And importantly, it speaks to the audience in the local language. It is important because it is closest to the people. It understands the people it serves. And community radio is the soul of the community. It expresses their values, their aspirations. It cries with them. It laughs with the people.
There are a lot of challenges in the industry. It's this lack of funding that we have. And while we want the best equipment, best quality audio, we essentially want to sound as great as any radio station that's broadcasting, either at a commercial or a public level. But our challenge is that we're not able to generate as much revenue through advertising as a commercial station would. So one of our biggest challenges is the fact that you will get to secure the equipment at the start, perhaps, of the project, and then it becomes very difficult to maintain that and upgrade and move with the time because you're not able to get as much funding. Our second challenge is the fact that we aren't able to generate revenue through advertising. It's also often very difficult to monetize our platform because it's often so community or interest targeted that brands aren't really trying to get into there. And unfortunately, unlike Ukhozi, which will sell millions of listeners, we're selling a very niche market that we're saying we're speaking to young, vibrant people. And these people you'll find in Johannesburg, you'll find in Braamfontein. And so we'll have to, because of that, we'll have to connect with a brand that needs to speak to these people. And it's very difficult, for example, to say, well, come just to us. So you'll find that banks would rather go to bigger radio stations, for example, so that they can reach more people instead of speaking to this very niche market. So that's one of the challenges that we have in how do we sell this audience that we speak to that's captivated, that's got power to spend also, but it's not in the mass numbers of what you'd have with other stations. And I think one of the challenges that we do have as community and campus radio stations, we don't invest a lot in audience researchers or trying to get more out of our audiences. So we'd have communications with them. We'll use WhatsApp, whether it's WhatsApp for business or however way it's been set up. We don't know much about the people we're speaking to. So we don't know how old they are. We don't know what their interests are, the kinds of brands they want to get into. So yes, sometimes for us, we'll run a survey at the start of the year, which aligns with all week. But beyond that, we don't get into breaking down that data and saying, okay, this is what we know about our audience, over and above just the demographics and the psychographics of the composition of it.
Community radio from the very beginning has always been hamstrung for a variety of reasons. It doesn't matter if you're running a big radio station or a small radio station, you still have a technical requirement. Infrastructure is a huge thing, and you see it up in Africa as well. And more so now that you've got massive power cuts. When the power goes off, community radio needs to stay on. They need to talk to their people. Internet has become a huge driver, and all these things cost money. And then there's a people element, and people also cost money. And as much as volunteers are a great thing, they're difficult to manage. And then community radio is also hamstrung because there's rules and regulations, and not many people are well versed in how to do these things. There's a lot of legalese. There's a skill set and a level of financial understanding that you require. And often broadcasters don't come with that background. They've got a passion for talking to people. They've got a passion for sharing news stories. And it's often the good broadcasters who become station managers or people involved in the operational scenario. and they crash and burn basically because they don't have a lot of that background. And then there's a technical element. Keeping a radio station on air requires people to understand what's going on. You need to understand electricity. You need to understand the broadcast chain and audio. You need to understand the internet. There's so many moving parts. And I think what we found is in the beginning, there were a lot of practitioners who tried to do it all, and it was easier to do it in the 90s and in the 2000s, but it's becoming more and more challenging as the Internet of Things start developing and technology starts developing and the broadcast spectrum starts changing. These stations are under even more pressure than they were previously. I heard an interesting statistic from people who work in community radio that it basically said, let's assume there's 250 radio stations on the air, community radio stations licensed and broadcasting. 2/3 of them are technically bankrupt. So, I mean, that's a huge challenge. But do we take these guys away because they can't pay the signal distribution? Who ultimately loses out? The community loses out. And it's not only about an audience, it's about the greater community. So I think there's a lot of room for these radio stations in terms of training and development, in terms of technical development, in terms of relationship with municipalities, local government and national government, and then between themselves. And on top of that, in the commercial industry. So with people who provide equipment, software solutions, training, knowledge and insight, and then with the legislature. So ICASA, I think, also has a big role to play in ensuring that community radio is sustainable, it's healthy, that the models that work, and the support structures behind it.
If we could access information about the audience that we speak to and we knew exactly what their interests were and how to best connect with them, that would be great currency for us. Even when we go to advertisers, it would mean when we speak into a particular bank, we tell them that this is our listener, this is their interest, this is what's challenging, and this is how you can plug into that. So that would be something that's very important for us. Where we are now, what we know is the general demographic information. And I'm guessing that any brand could get that from their own social media platforms or their customers and how they connect with them. But as a medium of radio, what you essentially want to know is, if you are there, your existence is connecting communities, is what makes this community unique. And I guess, sadly, for us, how do we sell them to advertisers? It's not a bad thing. We're not selling them like that, but we do need to generate revenue. So we need to sell our audiences to advertisers. There's a lot of opportunities for us to generate revenue. I think one area we have not explored in terms of monetizing is our, what you'd call our digital assets. So we know that we've got a substantial number of people that are listening. But our strategy has traditionally been selling us as a station that's based in Braamfontein and in Johannesburg. So how do I position someone that's listening to us from PE or from Cape Town? I think it's a time for us to shift the way we position in community radio station, that yes, we are community and we are located in a particular place or in a particular community, but we are beyond just that community. And this is largely because of this growth in digital media and people streaming. And we also have a substantial following on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And so how do we monetize this? Also, I think if Facebook is able to make so much money with an owned platform, how are we as radio stations not able to build a platform and an audience and then be able to monetize that? Because what we are seeing is that, yes, we are in this age of user-generated content, and essentially users don't mind sharing content for the benefit of Facebook, Twitter, and all these other platforms. They get nothing. But what are we doing as media owners and media practitioners to essentially take advantage of the fact that people are on these digital platforms and are ready to share their content And there's definitely an interest for people to connect with other people. And I think what WhatsApp has done with introducing these new privacy settings and rules is that it has shown us that in the long run, it will become very unsustainable for us to, as media owners and media practitioners, to continue relying on a platform like Facebook to give us what is what's basic and necessary for us to make our business. We want our listeners to communicate with us. So why should we depend on Facebook to enable us to be able to do it? Why not build our own platform to be able to achieve this? So a platform that will allow for us to have a peer-to-peer, communication platform is something that's very important. And also we do have, we're seeing there's a lot of change in how people consume news, for example. So you do want to have a medium that's able to, where you are able to share stories and update them as regularly as possible, because we also know that the way we are able to monetize on this digital platform is people need to come in as often as possible onto the platform, connect, get stories, get this, and which means that there's a need for also on our end to be able to generate that much content as much as people visit. There's a need for us to advance technologically. There's a need for us to have platforms that are specific to us and that suit our needs. If I'm able to connect with my audiences via a communication platform on in one place, and they able to access our podcasts, listen to our radio shows and comment on them live, that gives us so much more. And then I can be able to measure how often they're listening, what they're listening to. Then I'm able to present something more tangible to the advertisers. And also, if we are able to say, well, sign up, tell us more about yourself, then we address the other problem of, well, we know so much more. We know which brands they like. We know which cars they're driving, so we can offer them so much more. We know where they live and how they live. So the more the data, obviously, the better for us. And this obviously comes with a digital solution that's specific to the needs of this industry that we broadcast in. And I think it can all come in one box that just has everything.
Once you have a better way of integrating your brand with technology, it's easier to start speaking to big money. So big money doesn't sit where a lot of these guys sit, but big money are interested in accurate reporting. They're interested in hearing the product. They're interested in seeing what the brand looks like. When your brand is able to approach an international donor organization that does a lot of work in this space, and you can say, well, we can offer you this stuff. Allow me to show you what our infrastructure looks like. Let me show you a campaign we did for a local greengrocer with the spot log and the flighting. And here's an example of the copywriting. And here's the spot log. And it was all done via our software tool. We can offer you feedback in real time within 24 hours. I think that's an important thing. And then I think the other thing with technologies, and we mustn't underestimate the communities in which community radio stations operate in. These communities are all becoming more and more digital savvy. So they also live in the Internet of Things. It may not be behind a laptop computer, but what we do know is the use of cell phone and cell phone technology and mobile is massive. Digital platforms allow us to integrate users that are touching base with our media platforms. It allows us to speak to these people. It allows us to see what they like. And we can start asking them questions. Community radio often gets flooded with messages coming in, but nothing ever goes out. And as soon as they can start tapping into the ability to speak to audiences in different places and start asking them questions of when you go to the greengrocer, what do you buy? What are you prepared to pay? And you can start aggregating this kind of information. Community radio can then go back to advertisers and say, well, we ran a campaign for greengrocers. We can start aggregating data in the background based on the fact that we've got passionate audiences who like to talk to us. And I think there's a really unique opportunity and relationship for smaller radio brands to tap into things that bigger guys have been doing for a long time, but it's always cost a lot of money. Technology and software takes that barrier away, and it gives us access into a world which they never had.
This is a platform developed by eMedia with the support of Microsoft to make sure that radio and community radio in particular can become part of the digital wave. And the beneficiaries of this platform are most importantly people on the ground, community radio listeners. The people on the ground are enjoying the benefits of this platform more than any other stakeholder, because it allows them to be connected with their station, to be connected with their community.
My name is Cecil Nguvauva. I am the Secretary General of SABA, which stands for the Southern African Broadcasting Association, which is a body representing all the broadcasters, the free-to-air broadcasters, the conventional state broadcasters in Southern Africa. Given the challenges of community radios around the continent, given the tight budgets that they're actually operating on, given the small focus that they actually have, I think one of the best opportunities and the benefits on the Fabrik platform is to reach out, help connect whoever from wherever they are with the rest of the world. I have managed to lobby the SABA executive to endorse this platform as one of the best platforms that has actually ever happened on the African continent.
Hello, my name is Bérard Duprès. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Seychelles Broadcasting Corporation, the national broadcaster of the Republic of Seychelles. The first time I heard of Fabrik was at the SABA annual general meeting in 2017. I immediately got in touch with eMedia around deploying such a platform to the Seychelles. I have to say the rollout was relatively fast and painless. The eMedia team was just a perfect fit in terms of how we would have wanted to work with collaborators. They were efficient, understanding, and our team really hit it off to make it the most impressive rollout that we have had. What the Fabrik platform have done for us since has been nothing but short of amazing. We, the Seychelles, is only 100,000 people. And to have an application that is catered for a community like this has been a perfect fit for us as a national broadcaster. It has helped to connect our teams with the public. It has helped to enthuse our radio team, who perhaps at some point felt that they were being left behind by the digital transition. And we have continuously grown our audience engagement, our downloads on the app, and the amount of capabilities that this app can do has continued to evolve thanks to eMedia's continued input and development of this incredible platform.
The digital revolution that allows a station to make that digital leap from backwardness into the bright future that is beckoning. A station that was primarily confined to one region is suddenly, overnight, transformed into an international radio service.